Hello Internet and welcome to another edition of the Top 10 Top 10s of Board Gaming. It is 2016 and we are still in the middle of our 2015 list. I do apologize for that. The holidays in the month of December in general were a lot more hectic and busy than I thought they were going to be, so that leaves us less than halfway through our 2015 lists. We are going to go through these still though, and hopefully we'll have them done sometime before 2017 rolls around. Our list today is number 6, and that is the top 10 things that every game needs. And I'm not talking here about mechanics or gameplay. These are things that apply to any game, whether it's a small deck builder or a big, expansive 4X or Civilization game. These are things that are ancillary to the actual gameplay, but still affect your experience, your enjoyment, and your appreciation of the game. If you're a budding game designer, or if you're any kind of game designer who's watching this, maybe, these are all things that will go to improve your game. I don't think these things can make a bad game great or a great game bad, but if all 10 of these things are in your game, odds are the player is going to have a pretty solid gaming experience. So let's check out the list, starting with number 10. The first item on this list is a pretty simple catch-all, and basically number 10 thing that every game needs is everything that I need. And what I mean by that is the game should be completely self-contained. Everything that I'm going to need to play the game should be contained within the box. I don't want to have to go find coins or anything to use for tokens. One of the big problems with this is when you have to find pen and paper to keep track of scoring or characters' health. Have everything in the game. If it's not a print and play, if it's a professionally packaged game, professionally sold game, it should include everything I'm going to need to play the game. One of my all-time favorite games, Sentinels of the Multiverse, had this problem in its first printing. There was no way to keep track of health, and it was all done on paper. And it was a little bit of a hassle with a game that was already, some people thought, a little too mathy. They fixed that in continuous printings, but it's something that I think should be eliminated. Have a way for me to keep track and mark everything I need in the game. Don't make me add anything to it or bring anything to it myself, unless I choose to pimp the game out, so to speak. Everything I need to play right off the bat should be in the box when I open it. You should never judge a book by its cover, but we all do it anyway, and that's why the number 9 item on my list of things every game needs is good graphic design. Now, there are a lot of bad games out there, especially on Kickstarter, that rest on the laurels of their good artwork. But I also think there are a lot of good games out there that get overlooked because of their bad graphic design. There isn't a lot of advertising or promotion in board gaming, so basically when you design your game box, that is your game trailer. That is how you're selling the game to people. For better or worse, when people look at your box on the shelf, they're going to decide a lot of things about the game and make a lot of assumptions. So make sure the game looks good. Make sure it looks fun. How many games out there that are great games, but the box has a person on it looks like this? Who's going to want to play that game? The person on the box isn't going to have fun. How am I going to have fun when I open that box up and play it? And again, art is very subjective, so no matter what you do, there are going to be people who don't like it. But at least make an attempt. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take risks or try to do something different, but make sure it looks professional, like a real artist who tried. So at least if I look at it and maybe I don't personally like it, I could say, yeah, I see what they're going for there. That good graphic design should also carry over into the game itself once you open it up. Your components, whether they are cards, player mats, player pieces, everything, the board, everything should look good, match that good art you had on the box, and just be very conducive to playing the game. Good art, like I said, isn't going to make your bad game good, but it is going to make it more inviting and make more people more willing to play. Because remember, as the designer, you're not the only one selling this game. I have to sell it to my players too. So make sure it's an easy job for me to do by making really good artwork. Great example, King of Tokyo by Yellow. Yellow is a company that focuses a lot on their graphic design, make a lot of great games, not just them, Days of Wonder, Fantasy Flight. All these companies really working hard to make their games look great. And again, sometimes they're masking a bad game, but hey, if you suck me in with your art and it turns out to be a good game, we're both winners in my book. Now we've talked a little bit about what the box looks like, let's talk about the box itself. Number 8 item on my list of things every game needs is the right box for the right job. And what I mean by that, first of all, is you want a pretty standard sized box. And let's look at King of Tokyo again for that. Very unlikely that one game is going to be on the shelf by itself. It's going to have to stack or stand with others. So you want them to all pretty much be uniform. I really don't like when designers get cute with their box design. They make it a different shape. They make it round. They make it a special kind of container. It looks fun on the shelf at the store, but when you bring it home, put it on the shelf at home, it takes up the space of maybe 2 or 3 games and just doesn't conform well. So it's kind of a mess. So you want that standard size box. But while you're making a standard size box, it also has to fit everything the game has in it. It has to be exactly the right size for the game you have. You can go too big, you can go too small. I'll show you an example of both extremes here. This is the Star Trek deck building game, and wow, look how big that box is. We're going to get a ton of Star Trek in this box, right? Let's open up and see. You open it up, and what do you got? You got some cardboard filler. You got one stack of cards about yay big. You got more filler with a few dice in it. You got more filler and another stack of cards. So this huge box for essentially these two stacks of cards, which is just wasteful, not only the material, but also of the shelf space in your home. Definitely the wrong way to go. That box could have been maybe a fourth of the size it is and fit everything for that game. On the flip side, boxes can also be too small. Take, for example, Bottom of the Ninth, new little game that I love a lot, really enjoy it. But you open it up and you see how tight everything is in there. When I first bought this game, or when I first got it, I should say, and opened it up to look at everything, trying to put everything back was kind of a chore because it's all in there really snug. And keep in mind that when they release this, they simultaneously release two expansions. They come in little packages like this, so there's no box of their own. All has to fit in here. Already, day one, this box is too small. So keep in mind not only of what you've already published, but what you plan to publish in the near future. Great example of that is Smash Up. This is the original box, and this is now empty because they've expanded to the point where they've outgrown this box even. You look in there, you see all the spaces they have for different decks of cards. The base game only filled up probably maybe the first third of this first row. So they had expansions planned, and they gave you enough room. Again, the game is obviously surpassed this box and is in this one now that I don't think you can see. They put out a bigger box for it. But they planned ahead. And for about the first two and a half years, I'd say, of this game's existence, this box put everything they put out. So, again, with your boxes, plan ahead. Try to make them a standard size. Again, that's a good size. And make sure it's the right size, like I said, for the right job. The number 7 item on my list of things every game needs is a manageable footprint. Now, there are a lot of great games that I love, some of my favorite games, that fail at this miserably. They're big and they're sprawling, and that might be part of their charm, but it is a detriment to getting the game played often. You think of a game like Arkham Horror, that is just so huge. When you add expansions, it gets so much bigger, and the setup time is longer than it takes to play most games. And I really want to play it, I want to play it a lot, but just that mountain, that hill you have to climb of getting it to the table, getting it set up, getting everything together, is just such a hassle. And you want your game to be a little cleaner. I like it when, if there's half a dozen decks that you have to draw from, have a space on the board that I can put those decks on. Make room for that there. If there are a lot of chits or tokens that are going to be in play, have trays that they can be organized in, so I can just take them as needed and not have to find a place for them on the table. There should be a place for everything in its place. And it's not just really big games that fall into this. There are a lot of card games. You know, you can get deck builders where you end up sprawling with all these different decks you can draw from and cards you can play. So all games should be tightened up, just like the box should be as small as possible. The game itself, as you're playing it, should be as small as possible. And again, I know with a lot of game experiences that's just not possible, but I think it is important. Like I said, number 7, manageable footprint. The number 6 thing that every game needs is component stability. And what I mean by that is anything you have on the board or in the game to track information, whether it's a token on the board, a slider, a dial, it needs to be sturdy enough that it's going to hold that information to maintain it, even if something messes that part of the board up. There's nothing worse when you're playing the game and your score marker gets knocked over and you have to think, okay, did I have 9 points or did I have 10? I think I had 10 points. And everybody playing says, yeah, you probably had 10. And you take the 10 points and you end up winning and you think, should I have really won that game? I may have only had 9 points at the beginning. And it kind of screws up the whole experience for you. Take King of Tokyo, for example. Go back to this one. Great game, great components, but some of those character dials are a little loose. And it's hard to keep track of where exactly your points are, where your health is at. Patrol at the House on the Hill is another one. I complained about this in my review. They got those plastic sliders on the character markers, and those fall off too easy, and it's too hard to keep track of the information. Same thing on a board. If you're keeping track, if you're keeping score on a board with some kind of marker and it gets knocked over, again, it can mess the whole game up. Here's a great test. If you're designing a game, set it up, have everybody play it. Halfway through the game, have somebody go like this. Whatever fell over, whatever information you don't have correct anymore, you need to fix that. Again, number 6, component stability. Sounds like a small, unimportant thing, but it really can screw a game up when it's not there. The number 5 thing every game needs, and this may seem a little silly, even a little OCD, but I say every game needs a good insert. And again, that may seem unimportant, but for me, if your game is easy to take out of the box, set up, and then clean up and put away when I'm done, I'm going to be much more likely to play it, period. Here's a great game. I pointed this out in another top 10 list I did, Tobago. This game has one of the best inserts I've ever seen. Everything packs up nice. You see here, you have the board pieces, the modular board. They slide in there, come right out. The board is the thing is molded here to perfectly fit the edges of that board. You have spaces for all of the components here, the chits, the cards, and then underneath that you have your smaller pieces, your wooden cubes, and your tokens there. Everything fits in there so well, and I love playing this game. It's a fun game. I'd play it anyway, but I just love it. It's easy, especially if we're playing late at night, if it's one of the last games we're playing. Hey, let's go get Tobago. You grab it, you pull it out, you know where everything's at, you know where everything's going to go when you're done. You don't have to pack anything up or decide where you're going to fit different things, and that's such a great addition to the experience. Again, it has nothing to do with gameplay, nothing to do with how the game actually works, but it makes it so much more fun for me to be able to take it out, set it up fast, put it away fast, and move on to the next thing. That's why number 5 most important thing that every game needs, good insert. The number 4 thing that every game needs are handy components. And what I mean are components that are of a shape and color and size that are easy to manipulate, easy to interact with, and easy to use throughout the game. If there are cards in the game, they need to be the right size. I don't want giant cards that I'm not going to be able to hold a whole hand of, or tiny little cards that I can't even fit my fingers or see that well. Dice need to be a good size so I can pick up a handful and roll. I hate those tiny little dice that some games give you. They give you a big bag of it, but they're about that big, and you can barely see the numbers on them. Player markers and player counters need to be clearly distinguished from each other. Don't give me things that are 3 different shades of red. Make sure they're very easily distinguished from one another. Consider different lighting conditions if you're making a game. Be aware that some people may not be able to see as well as you're looking at it. The game needs to be considerate of colorblind players and make sure that they're able to tell things apart based on things other than color. Make sure the pieces are big enough that they don't get lost. If something gets bumped off the table, is it going to disappear? And we'll never know until we go to play that game again and that piece is missing. As far as stuff getting knocked off the table, make sure that I can find it when I drop it. You know, that's another good test. If you're designing a game, take all your components, throw them all over the floor, see how easy they are to find. See how many times they bounce to make sure something's not going to bounce to the other corner of the room, and the players won't spend the rest of the night looking for that one piece of the game. So again, this is another thing you don't think about too often, but you need good handy components. You need something on the table that you can use and work with and aren't going to get lost, aren't going to be hard to use or read, and that everybody's just going to be able to play with and enjoy. Handy components, number 4. The number 3 thing that every game needs is some kind of player reference material. And this might be a little bit of a cheat because not every game needs it. If a game is very simple, doesn't have a lot going on, then it could probably get away without this. But any game that has any level of complexity at any point in the game needs to have something that players can refer back to. It could be turn order, it could be scoring, it could be any number of things. But if there's a lot of choices to be made, a lot of decisions, a lot of options, that needs to be on the table for all players to see. I mean, what's worse in a game than when you get to a player's turn and they think they have their turn all planned out, but they didn't understand how turn sequence works. So you get to, oh, I can't do that? Okay, let me think for a second. And everybody has to sit there for 5 or 6 minutes while that player rethinks their entire turn. It's a real drag on the whole game. Player reference material also takes the pressure off the person teaching the game. I've been in this position before. I teach the whole game, lots of ins and outs, lots of moving parts, and inevitably you get to the point maybe halfway through the game, maybe at the end when you're scoring, and somebody goes, oh wow, if I would have known how that's how it works, I would have played completely different. And it's really bad if you're the teacher and you win the game, because they won't come out and call you a cheater, but they will very strongly suggest it. So it kind of casts a shadow over the whole game. If you have something there in front of them, you can say, hey, I taught you the rules, it's right there in front of you, you had that the whole time, no excuses. It's also nice to have something in front of you so you don't have to be flipping through the rule book constantly. Let's face it, these are very complex games we play, lots of rules, lots to remember. Even the most intelligent of us is going to need to be reminded of some things. So instead of having to pick, okay, what page was that on? Page 15 or 16, I think it was, and going through and pausing the game, everything's right there in front of you. Games do this in a lot of different ways. Some games give you cards to pass out to each player. Sometimes the reference is printed on the back of the rule book and everybody has access to it. Sometimes, and I really like when games do this, everything is printed right on the board. So it's right there in front of everybody. Everybody has all the information they need. No going back to the rule book, no excuses. It's all right there. So again, something maybe we don't think about too much, but very important, player reference material. The number 2 thing that every game has to have is pretty obvious, but it's also very important, and that is component durability. I hate when I open up a game and I can tell just by looking at it, man, this thing is fragile, it's going to fall apart over time, or even not so much time as I play it. If you have cards in your game, they have to be high quality stock. Those cards are going to be shuffled up, they're going to be passed around, they're going to be sliding around on the table. Lots of bad things are going to be happening to those cards, so they have to be good quality. Especially if it's a social deduction game or something like Love Letter, where the secrecy of the cards is important. Remember, one noticeable mark on one of those cards is going to turn that entire game into a box of garbage. So those cards have to be well made and high quality. If there's plastic in the game, miniatures, I like miniatures that are like tight and compact and are have low center of gravity, so they're going to be much less likely to break. I hate tall, skinny miniatures. I hate when you might have a character with like a long spear or a sword or something, and it's neat looking, but that thing's going to snap off. The plastic has to be molded well, crafted well, and built. Be kept in mind again. It's going to be used and abused, and it's going to be handled a lot, and it's going to have to hold up under that pressure. Stay on that base, stay on that stand, stay in one piece. I want good dice. A lot of dice you get are flimsy, it's cheap plastic, and if it gets dropped to the floor, it gets rolled too hard, maybe it's going to crack. I've seen that happen, and I hate that. You need good quality dice. The board, you need a high quality, solid, thick cardboard board. Odds are the board's going to have to fold once, maybe twice in the box. If so, please make sure it's able to withstand that. I hate when I see a board fold and I look at the unfold again, I'm like, wow, that's going to wear out. This thing's going to be in two pieces before I know it. We talked about the box and the insert, and that's all part and parcel of this. The game needs to be able to be packed away correctly so stuff's not going to be broken when it's moving around inside the box. Like I said before, these games aren't simple, they also aren't cheap. So we're paying for good quality, we should be given good quality, and the game should hold up. If you're designing a game, think positive, assume I'm going to love it and want to play it over and over and over again with lots of different people. Probably a lot of people who really don't care about the game and aren't going to worry about what condition it's in when they're done playing. So make sure you build your game to last. And finally, the number one single thing that every game absolutely has to have is a well-written and well-laid-out rulebook. This is such a crucial thing. If the rulebook isn't written well and doesn't explain the game well, it's going to be a domino effect, and it's going to impact every single aspect of the game and really impact your enjoyment of it. A rulebook should be laid out in such a way where everything about turn order is under turn order, everything under combat is under combat, everything about scoring is under scoring. And it needs to be chronological. It needs to be almost like a narrative of the rules, where when I'm reading page 1, I'm not being told about concepts that I'm not going to understand until I read page 12. Everything's needs to be laid out way so it's very easy for me to learn. Just reading the book, I don't have to open up the game and look at everything. It's very clearly explained in the rule book. If you're writing a rule book, please do not, I cannot emphasize this enough, do not split the game up into two sections. Don't give me an easy game that you want to play on your first time, and then the rest of the game as the hard version, which is actually the entire game, and then ask me to basically learn two separate rule books for the game. I'm not that bright a guy. I can understand the whole game at once. And if I can understand it, most gamers are going to be able to. Please don't insult our intelligence by saying, oh, you need to be eased into this. So we'll just give you a little snippet of the game. If you want to do that, give me a full, complete rule book, and then give me an insert or a page that explains the simple game that you want me to have. I just played New York 1901 for the first time. God bless them. That's what the Blue Orange did. They gave me a complete rule book, and then they have a sheet in there that says, hey, if some of this is a little too complex for you, you want an easier game, play this way. And that's the perfect way to do it. Don't split the rules up so now I have two rule books to read, and I have to piece together, okay, part of combat is on page 3 in the easy game, and the other part is on page 17 with the hard game. Drives me crazy. Do not do that. The other thing you want to avoid doing, do not make your rulebook a tutorial. Do not make me go through the game piece by piece. Say, okay, well, let's play combat. We'll just play a combat version of the game. Then we'll play this other version of the game. Then we'll do this. If you can see over here, Duel of Ages 2. This game has been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years. I'm dying to play this game. It looks like so much fun. I have not played it yet because the rulebook is so terrible. It tries to do that. It's a tutorial. It takes pieces of the game, has you play it out one at a time, and it puts so much effort into that, and it doesn't even put the game together at the end. So now I'm left, okay, I know how to do combat, and I know how to do this, I know this special version of the game here, but how does it all come together? What is the actual game? Never really explains that. Just give me a whole game. Again, I can handle it. I'm a big boy. I can handle the whole game at once. Please give me to it that way. But make it easy to digest, make it understandable, lay it out well. Again, very easy thing. As you can tell, I read a lot of rule books, and there's a lot of things in them that frustrate me. So it is very important that a game has a well-written rule book that's laid out well, understandable, makes the game easy to play, easy to teach, and a lot more fun for everybody. That's why it's the #1 thing, most important, easy to understand, well-written rule book. Okay, everybody, that is my top 10 list of things every game needs. Now it's your turn. Tell me, what did I overlook? What did I put too much emphasis on? And what are the things that games need to include to make sure you're fully going to enjoy the experience? Tell me in the comment section below. And while you're at it, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter. After you've done all that, take a visit to our sponsor website, alteregogames.net. They're going to have a ton of great games that I promise will have all 10 of these things in them. Well, I can't really promise that, but they do have a lot of great games. If you'd like to check out some of our older videos, you can find them on YouTube, Facebook, Board Game Geek, or the Alter Ego Game site. Keep an eye out for list number 5 coming soon, and until then, have fun out there.